Hello everybody, the Civilization 6 expansion, Rise and Fall, has released, and I took a pretty in-depth look at it. If you don't know, I'm a pretty huge Civ fan. I really liked Civ 4 and Civ 5, and even when Civ 6, when it came out, I'm a heathen. I did actually like Beyond Earth when it came out with the expansion. Aside from that, the base game of that wasn't that great. But Civ 6 is pretty good, and this expansion is exactly what we wanted for this game. If you remember back to Civilization 5, or maybe if you don't know, Civilization 5 came out, and it was met with some pretty mediocre reviews from the players of it. It had a good base, but it didn't necessarily have all the bells and whistles that the other previous games did. And this has kind of become a trend. You know, they release the game as a pretty good base, and then they build on that based on what the community wants, what they think that they need to add. For example, in Civilization 5, you had the base game, and then you got the Gods and Kings expansion, which added religion and all that entailed, which was really good. And then Brave New World came out and just made that game excellent. And now that's the game that people play when they play Civ. You know, if you're going to play Civ with somebody, you don't load in Civ 6, you load in Civ 5. But this has just kind of been their content release schedule. They release these expansions, and it makes the game better. And typically there comes a point where, because if you remember, if you're a Civ player, people weren't playing Civ 5, they were playing Civ 4. And then Gods and Kings came out. Some people switched over and were like, okay, this is good. And then Brave New World came out. Now everybody plays Civ 5. Here's the thing. It's going to be the same thing with this. And I'll talk about that in a minute and exactly what this expansion puts in the game. But it is basically the Gods and Kings of Civilization 6. It gives you enough new stuff in the game and changes the way that a lot of things work that people didn't really like, in a way that makes it so it is way more playable than it was before. Not that the game was bad before. Again, I said from the get-go that Civilization 6 was really, really good, and I was really excited to see kind of what they did with it once expansions came out. The only exception to this rule is Beyond Earth, because this is a game that launched and a lot of people didn't like, even though I liked the concept of it. I liked how they went about doing some things in it, even if they pretty much stole the tech tree out of Endless Space. But at the same time, it just was never good enough, even with the Rising Tides expansion, to warrant going and playing it. It's kind of a different feel of a game. It's not quite the same, and that's okay. I think it's okay to have like a Civ 0.5 game where it's kind of an in-between major Civilization games, and it provides like a good distraction or like a different experience to kind of refresh your taste buds on the whole experience. But with Rise and Fall, it is, like I said, doing that. It's not the rising tide of Beyond Earth. It is the Gods and Kings of Civ 5. It is adding enough that it makes this game playable for most Civ players. And I think most people are going to transition from Civ 5 to Civ 6 now because of it. So what does this expansion add? Well, the predominant feature is in the title, Rise and Fall. It adds these Golden Ages and Dark Ages. Golden Ages aren't anything new to Civ. We've had Golden Ages before, but what is new are the Dark Ages. And this is essentially, it's a new system in the game that tracks your progress based on the stuff that you're doing, how well you're doing. You get these things called era points. And in the bottom right corner, the turn timer is where that usually is for multiplayer, but where you see like the little globe, there's now a ring that goes around the outside. And on the bottom, there is a number that tracks. So it's like, I don't know, like 1 of 20 or anything like that. And you basically have to fill the bar up twice. So if you fail to fill the bar up once, you enter a Dark Age. If you fill the bar up, you avoid a Golden Age and a Dark Age. If you fill the bar up twice, which isn't necessarily twice because the numbers change when you get to the Golden Age one, but the point is when you fill it up twice, then you get a Golden Age. And if you go from being in a Dark Age to a Golden Age, rather than a Dark Age just to a normal, then to a Golden Age, and you manage to kind of crawl your way back, you get like a super Golden Age, and the power of the stuff that you get in that is really, really good. And I'm going to talk about the balance of all that in a minute, because right now it's a little unbalanced. The Dark Age stuff is really, really good. It kind of encourages you to go into a Dark Age at one point, because the policies that you're able to enact while you're in a Dark Age are just so good that you could probably win the game if you just remained in a Dark Age most of the time. That's not to say that the super powerful, like ultimate Golden Age ones aren't just as powerful. Those are also very, very good because you can get so many of these different policies. But the thing is, or dedications is what they call them. But the thing is, when you do that, it's almost the game right now, balance-wise, is kind of making you go into a Dark Age, go into a Super Golden Age, then go back into a Dark Age, then go back into a Super Golden Age. It's really hard to do that. But if you could balance that out, and if you could do that the entire game, you're going to be crazy powerful by the time you reach the mid and the late game. So how do you get these points? Well, you're doing things like killing barb camps at the beginning, or founding cities, or finding the little like goodie huts that are around that give you free stuff at the beginning of the game, or just like meeting new things, like meeting new city states and meeting different players, or if you're playing single player, the different factions, the AI. And then going and discovering new things like wonders, building certain stuff. Another way that you get points is getting Eurekas, which Eurekas have been in Civ 6 since the beginning, which is like your tech tree and your culture tree. So essentially, imagine one of them is like kill a unit with a slinger, and you get a Eureka on learning how to make the archers. And that's totally fine. I like that. But when you get one of those, now it adds a point, an era score point, which is really good. It's pretty easy to keep yourself out of a Dark Age if you're just playing the game properly. It's actually very difficult to go into a Dark Age unless you're kind of trying to, and you're, or you have like a really bad start. I guess that doesn't help either. But they give era score for other things as well, things that you wouldn't necessarily think about, which actually helps uneven starts out very, very well. So like you can get an error point by founding a city on a coast, or in desert, or on tundra, and like every time you found a city in a new kind of spot, you get era score. So it does kind of suggest that you should be kind of putting your cities in new spots if you really want to farm that era score early on or later on. And as long as you're kind of doing these things, you're getting these points. Again, when you get into a Dark Age, you have like these special dedications that you can enact at the end of that process, or at the beginning of that process, that lasts for your entire Dark Age, and your screen gets all dark and everything. If you do a normal age, you just go one dedication. That's, it's okay. But if you get a super golden age, or if you get a golden age, you get like a multiple of these dedications. If you get super golden age, you get like really good dedications, and a lot of them. And it's very, very powerful. And I like that the game now has this ebb and flow into it. And you're always kind of having to decide when you build certain things and when your faction is going to be the most powerful, because when you build certain units, if you build like a specific unit, like right now I'm playing as Scotland, which is one of the 9 new leaders that they added into the game. If you're playing as them and you build a Highlander, which is kind of like around musketmen for tech, you get like a massive boost to your era score for that era. And if you build like a golf course as Scotland, you get a massive thing, because that's their special unit. So whenever you build the special thing for your civilization, you get a massive era score boost. And that's typically when you can really swing the game into getting into a super golden age, because you can get a lot of points very quickly by being most powerful when your civilization was most powerful in history. But I just really enjoy this system that they've added, because it does kind of make the game less predictable, and there's a lot more stuff going on, and you have to kind of keep an eye out for, especially if you're playing multiplayer, you have to keep an eye out for other players getting these heroic ages and these dark ages and these golden ages, or staying pretty neutral, because that kind of gives you an idea of how they're doing a little bit better. And you really got to be careful when a certain civilization is about to reach like their time in history where they were really powerful, because they can boost themselves up very quickly and even like make an army real quick and take you out. You got to be very careful. And I like that. I like that you have to be aware of what the other civilizations can do based on where they were good within history. And I like that because it just adds a little bit more depth to the game. And then on top of that, that's not the only system that they've added into Rise and Fall. They've also added loyalty. And this is very important because now your cities have loyalty. And they have like basically a filter that you can see all of the loyalty. In fact, you can even on the far left side of the little city panels above your city, it'll show like a plus or like a green arrow up or like an arrow down based on if you're gaining or losing loyalty with that city. So if you go and you're kind of like on one side of the map and you go and found a city next to another person and it's way away from you, but it's really close to their cities, you're going to be losing a lot of loyalty to that city. And what could happen is that city can become neutral. It can basically become a city-state. And in some cases, if the player or the other civilization that is nearby that city that just lost its loyalty to you, they can now pick it up. They can gain the loyalty on it and it would become one of their cities. And it's this interesting dynamic of having to make sure that you can't just like spread out across the world and put cities all in random spots. So it's kind of like a balancing tool, but it also makes sure that really powerful civs as far as like culture or anything else is concerned really that has a lot of loyalty in their cities, they don't necessarily have to go to war to you or with you to start taking your territory. And that may seem kind of annoying, but it's really nice because you can do it back to them. And you just have to be kind of aware of where your loyalties are lying when you place down cities and how much loyalty is coming in and out. And that can change based on trade routes going in and out too. So like almost the way the culture worked before where you can kind of become influential over a civilization, it works similar in the fact that your cities can become influential and have influence put that down on them based on just, all of the different factors in the game, like how powerful the other civ is, how much culture they're getting, how close your city is to theirs compared to yours and stuff like that. And you can even get the new governors, which I'll talk about in a minute, to counteract a little bit of that if you're really struggling with about to lose a city to another player. But as far as these governors are concerned, you basically have like a list of, I think it's like 8 or 9 governors that you can put down in a city. And you just gain governor points as you're kind of playing. And there's other things that you can do to gain them. I'm not going to go into super detail. But these governors you can place in a city and they have their own upgrade tree that they can do. So you can either recruit a lot of governors or you can use those governor points to put them in there, like experience trees, kind of like a unit, how it has its experience tree, and you can like make it move faster on certain terrain and do certain, better damage based on like where it's at and that kind of thing. These governors have stuff like that, but they're a little bit more powerful. And you recruit a governor based on which one you want. There's like a financer, there's a diplomat, there's like a religious one, there is a defensive one, so if you're being attacked, he's really good to have. But you put these in one of your cities, and as you get governor points, you upgrade them, and they add certain benefits to that city that they are in, which is really nice. There's even one that you can put in city-states, and they count as more of your like delegations that you're sending to city-states. So you can actually get the suzerain, whatever it's called, on a city-state much easier by using one of these governors if like another civilization is trying to snipe it out from underneath you. And it's just kind of a cool system because it adds, again, another layer of depth to the game where you're having to consider, like, am I going for a strong economy, or am I going for a lot of science, or am I going for a lot of culture or military? And you can kind of put these governors in the places, in the cities that you're doing that a lot in, and expand your empire based on having, additional bonuses there, which is really nice. Like there's one governor that I love using, and she basically has an upgrade where it allows you to buy with gold the districts on a city. So you can buy like a campus district or a campus district, a campus district, what's the word I'm looking for? A entertainment district. There we go. And anything like that, you can just throw them down. You can even buy things like a space district with gold and just plop it down wherever. And you don't have to wait for the build times for it. So she's really, really powerful to have in one of your cities if you're trying to get a lot of districts out and get the bonuses on them, especially if your cities are close by and you're trying to double up on them. You can move them to different cities and kind of get the bonuses on that. And it's really, really cool. I just love how it adds a little bit more of a dynamic to actually managing your individual cities once you have them down. It should also be said that they addressed one of the bigger concerns with the game, which is the AI and how it behaves. They did that several patches ago. They kind of added a little bit to it and fixed it, and also added better rules for city placements at the beginning, where typically if you spawn in a spot, you're not going to spawn next to another player. You're going to spawn and there's going to be a couple city states usually in between you and them. So there's a little bit of a natural border, which is nice. But they also just kind of upped the AI and made it so they're not so dumb, because the AI before was really annoying and really bad and would just like denounce you for no good reason. Well, now that stuff is a lot easier to see. And because of that, the AI feels a lot more smart, and it makes one of the new systems they added to the game a lot more usable, which is the new alliance system. Before, you can kind of declare an alliance and whatever. It didn't really mean much, but now it does. So now you can get bonuses. You can get like gold off of your trade routes to that person, or science or faith or culture or anything like that based off of your trade routes to that person. And the longer you upkeep that alliance with that person, the stronger that buff gets. So it kind of encourages you to be having alliances in the game. And with the AI, it's really nice because you are kind of choosing who you want to ally with. Usually, when I would play Civ 6 before, just all of the AI would hate me except for maybe 2 people, and they liked me because I had like a big army or whatever it was. And the rest of them would hate me and come and attack me. Well, now I can kind of manage alliances, and it's really nice because now that I'm allied with these people, if I start getting attacked, I can have, the Mongols, which I'm allied with in the game that you're watching in the background, come and defend me and help me out with that. So you can play off of diplomatic alliances a lot better now because of this system. And it encourages you to upkeep those alliances because you're getting massive bonuses off of them, which is really cool. And obviously you can do this in multiplayer. You can set up the alliances between 2 players and you can be getting bonuses on that. And I like that a lot. It encourages, team play, which is fun, and it encourages like alliances and actually being able to form like, I don't know, like a North American trade agreement where you have like all this trade happening between several players and you're forming this alliance, but maybe someone on another continent offers a much better deal and buys that person out, and now they're on their alliance and you're like, I don't know about this, and then suddenly that person is being funded to go to war with you guys, and it's like this cool diplomatic thing that you really only get on tabletop games a lot of the time. It now encourages that in Civ 6, and I really, really like that. You could do that before, but now there's like a system in place that allows you to mess with things like that. So overall, I think that Rise and Fall is the Gods and Kings of Civilization 6. It is the first expansion. I bet you are going to get another one because the game is actually doing very well for itself. And I think that this expansion gives us enough content and enough new changes to the game that we can now go and play this game actively without really having to feel like we should be playing Civ 5 because it's more complete. And honestly, it adds so many cool little dynamic things that we didn't really have before, such as the Golden Age, Dark Age kind of dynamic, the back and forth there, that I think if they can figure out the balance a little bit more, because balance changes, I'm not concerned about that. Right now it's a little unbalanced, and you should be going for Dark Ages a little bit more than you should anything else. Once they kind of figure that out a bit and they balance it a little bit more and they get some play testing in, maybe even modders come in and, get their balance kind of dynamics going if you want to do like the no quitters mod or something like that, then I feel like this game is now the one to start playing. Unless you have a ton of people who are playing 5 and they don't have 6 yet, then you may as well keep playing 5. But once that new expansion comes out, I think there is going to be another one. Actually, I'm guaranteed there's going to be another one. Then this is going to be the game to be playing for a while until we get like the next Civ game. But this game is really genuinely good now because of this expansion. It wasn't bad before, it just wasn't as complete. And now it is, I would say, as good as 5. There are some still glaring issues in it, but with that said, if they can keep up balancing, hopefully, and not necessarily giving us really bad DLC, which they've done thus far, except for the expansion, then we should be in for a really, really, really good Civ game over the long run. And I think that this one especially solves a lot of the multiplayer connection issues that 5 had, which just makes it way more playable, in my opinion. It was hard to get into a game in 5 and not have it just break a lot of the time. And with Civ 6, if you're playing multiplayer, it is way better to actually to jump into a game with other people because it tends to not break as much. There's some issues, but tends to not break as much, which solves a lot of problems for me. And that is why I personally have now switched from 5 to 6 officially. I don't think I'm going to go back to 5 anytime soon, and I'm just pretty much going to focus all my attention on 6 when I want to play a Civ game, because it is that good. It is really, really good. And I know some people don't like the art style, but it's grown on me quite a bit, especially with a lot of the new stuff that they've added. Looks really, really good. And I'm excited to see what they add next. But overall, I would suggest playing it. I would suggest picking it up. It is good enough to get. If you don't already have Civ 6, wait for it to go on sale, and then wait for the expansion to go on sale. Pick them both up if you can. At that point, I don't think they're worth it at full price at the moment. So kind of get them whenever you see them lower in price, and I think that would be the best way to go about doing that. Maybe encourage your friends to do it too so you can play with them. But with all that being said, I want to know what you guys feel about Rise and Fall. Have you played it yet? Do you feel like it's a good enough expansion? Are you even into Civilization? Is that something that now you're kind of looking at? You're going, oh, this looks cool. It is a very unique niche game, but when you're playing with other people especially, it is a lot of fun. I think the expansion does a very good job of adding to that fun as well. With all that being said, though, we shall see you guys next time.